So everybody else is muted right now. We'll start the seminar a little late, giving everybody a chance to come on, and wanted to say hi to everybody and see everybody. It's just so many different people that I know. It's great. Everybody's waving back. You can imagine that, John, 50.
Oh, 50. I am. I'm seeing all those little squares across the screen with everybody.
Oh, you see it?
No, in my mind's eye, I do. I do, Mark. Remember, I'm a great hypnotic subject.
You are. You're a great hypnotist and hypnotic subject. So welcome everybody for coming today. It's just great. I was going to do a little mini coaching sessions for people for free, and then I had written to John and asked him if he'd like to come on for an interview. And when he said, yeah, let's do it. It's a great idea. He was going to do something like that anyways. I said, well, how about I just bump what I'm doing and get you on? He said, I loved it and I love the idea. So here's my good friend and mentor, one of my best friends in the world. And I've known him and started studying with him since 1996. And he's got 40 years of doing therapy, 31 years as a trainer. And you taught psychology at a college up in Pennsylvania, right, John?
Yep, Elizabethtown College, yep.
Elizabethtown College. So here he is. We're going to do an interview, and then we're going to do an induction. My very good friend and mentor, John Overdurf.
Hey, y'all. Thank you so much for being on the call with Mark and me. And what we wanted to do was really keep this informal. We've always had, since the time I met Mark, we always had just great conversations. And I said, look, why don't we just have a conversation? And we'll do a little induction. Hopefully there will be, well, I'm planning on it at least, there will be some points that could be helpful to y'all. I think just in general, the big frame that we're looking at is this whole period right now is a reset. And if you're curious about what all that means and on every level, stay tuned because that's what we're going to be talking about.
Yeah. I like the idea of a reset. When I was talking to John yesterday, I asked him, I said, wouldn't it be cool if it kind of frame it in the sense of to say, all right, here you are in the world, and the world's going very fast. The energy's going fast, and it just seems to continue to get faster. And we look to find times to meditate, to slow down, and to do different things, to go to seminars, just to kind of get back, slow down, and find out who we are. So wouldn't it be neat to put the frame as if you ask the world to stop for a little while and slow down, and even people that are out there and people that are working, it's not going to completely stop, but it's going to slow down and say, what if I got a chance to reconnect and just say that not just reconnect me, myself, but on a level worldwide where people just start to, really say, what are we doing here? Who are we? What do we want to do? And that takes being able to slow down the other part of your mind. And that's what John and I had talked about doing, and helping people find ways to slow down so they could get into a place of reconnection. Is that something that you think so, John? Is that something you're...
Yeah. I mean, I think all of this has taken everybody by surprise because really, even the epidemiological experts, they don't agree on everything except that it's called new coronavirus for a reason, meaning that we don't have immunity. And it's going to take about as long probably to have the herd immunity that they all talk about, where 80% of the people would have it. They're projecting that could be as long as it would be to develop a viable vaccine. And again, that's all speculative too. So I think that now, I look back, Mark and I were talking yesterday, and I was sharing with him kind of the progression that I went through. Because I had, most of you probably know, if you don't know me that well, probably 2/3 of what I do is teaching, and 1/3 is coaching and therapy, I would say. And so, like everybody, we've taken a pretty good hit here. I had a seminar scheduled actually for next week, a master class. And before a lot was going on, it was probably around the first week of, in fact, I know it was the first week of March. I had read, actually, Tim, who's on the call, had sent me the Thomas Puello paper that was showing up on Medium. And when I read that, actually that was later on, but in the beginning, what happened was I was just thinking, we're probably going to have to do something here because we do small little intimate trainings here, and we were going to be doing a lot of different types of breath work and stuff. And I'm thinking, oh, that's going to be great, John. Let's have everybody do a lot of like deep breathing and ha breathing and things like that in a small group after they've been flying on a metal tube. And at that point, we had people coming from some of the hot spots actually. So I was thinking about that and wasn't really sure what to do. And then there was a point later on, just before I went to bed, that, and sometimes that's when you have these thoughts when you're kind of just drifting off a little bit and something comes in, and I thought, we live in a little community of 3,900 people here, and I don't know that we're the only organization that's bringing people in from all over the world, but there's probably not very many. And how would I feel if I knew that somebody came here and maybe they were infected, maybe they didn't even know they were, and we'd find ourselves in a situation where maybe we'd get sick, maybe we wouldn't, but maybe what would happen is that we would be chiefly responsible for afflicting the people here. And that was the decision point for me. I was just, I just thought, okay, dude, now this is your opportunity to be responsible and to make a contribution to your community, probably that they'll never know, because I doubt if anybody from Madison's on this. And I woke up the next morning. I talked to Kirsten a little bit about it, and it was challenging because at this point, a lot of the airlines weren't clear on what they were doing. A lot of the mandated stuff hadn't been even close to happening. Still not really in many places. And so I thought, what are we going to do? Because people are going to lose their refunds. So we just said, well, we'll take care of all of it. And as it turned out, we didn't really have to, because when we contacted the B&B people here, they understood. And that was the thing that, it turned from a kind of a very stressful day, disappointing, kind of sad. I wasn't going to get to see the folks I wanted to see. And then what happened was it got better and it got brighter and brighter as the day went on, because I could see that people were starting to get in and they were understanding, and we were all working together. And that's when I said to Kirsten, I said, it's like, we're all taking a hit in this, but we all are. And that's one of the things that I think is really different about this than many of the other things that are happening. This virus is an equal opportunity infector. It goes wherever it goes, and it affects us all. And I really do believe that there is an opportunity here for us all to make a contribution, even if the contribution, and I think for many of us, it's not easy. It's like, okay, so we're going to do the social distancing thing. We're going to self-isolate, and we're going to do what we can to see what effect we can have on, collectively flattening the curve. And for me, that day that started off being kind of grim and sad turned into really an uplifting day, because when people were responding back and they were saying, this is the right decision, this is what we need to do. And so I'm still on that energy right now. I still feel that that's what we all have that we can be doing collectively. But then, of course, there's all the things that we can be doing individually, and what I would call, it's probably going to be an inside year, not like just indoors inside, but I think it's an opportunity to make it an inside year in terms of self-reflection and all the different kinds of things that we can be doing with the time that most of us are going to have.
Yeah, that's well said. I've got to remember I'm not on Telecoaching University listening to you, that I'm actually interviewing you. I found myself going into the Telecoaching You mode where we're all on mute, including me, and I sit there and listen to you. So so tell me, what normally happens to people, John, when things like this happen? Do we normally go and think to ourselves and keep our boundaries within self? You beautifully just explained how you looked out for, you had an expansion of who you considered in your circle. And what happens to most people when they get fearful? Do they close that circle? What happens?
Yeah, usually, if you look at, just this, our fear circuitry, with people that are close to us that we consider to be our clan, we're likely to align ourselves with them. But, you know, what's kind of different in this situation is that because social distancing and voluntary, or in some cases mandated, isolation or so-called self-quarantining is what we're all being asked to do, we have to find other ways to connect. And so, you know, I'm lucky. I know we're on a farm. We've got horses. You know, we've got our cats. It's Kirsten and me. There's interaction. There's stuff that we can be doing. And of course, people who have intact families have a similar kind of thing like that, in that they could have a support system, albeit, there's, mom and dad who might have been working now have kids home with daycare. So there's a lot of stuff that's going on there. And then, of course, there's people that are more single, who are the people that I would be thinking about, as well as the seniors, as well as our elders, who may not have the support available, readily available to them. And in these cases, where do we go? Well, with all of the stuff that's being put out, via the media, some credible, some not so much, same with the internet. Bottom line is that, our fear circuitry that's hardwired is listening,
Yeah.
and to me, and so where does that take us? Well, that takes us to, the brainstem and the lower part of the limbic system. And what does that mean? Well, that means fight, flight, and freeze. That's what that means.
Yep.
And what that also means is, we're dumping cortisol into, or people can be, I don't want to say we are, can be dumping cortisol into their system. And what most people don't always recognize is that that system was set up for when, we were in true life and death, where there could be a predator after us. And so it enabled us to either flee or play dead or shoot cortisol into our periphery, so that if we get bit or something like that or injured, it doesn't hurt. But
So
those things, that
cortisol's main thing is to numb us out a little bit, then, and
exactly,
not just physically, but psychologically too, or just physically.
It's more physically, but the problem with it is that whole system was only set up for, to last for about a minute and a half, because if we go back to our ancestors, the deed was going to be done one way or the other, usually within a matter of minutes.
Yeah.
So either we got away, or the worst possible situation is we didn't. And then that's when our body goes into complete freeze. And if you ever want to get into all the really, big details of this and fine nuances of this, read Stephen Porges' book on polyvagal theory, because it's pretty much what I'm talking about here. And, what happens when we go into freeze, it's kind of an involuntary thing. And as he likes to say, when this whole fight, flight, and freeze thing takes place, when our fear circuitry wakes up, there's a whole cascade of things. So we've got the cortisol. Well, the problem with that is that depresses our immune system, because we're not meant to have that switched on for, hours upon hours. And consequently, then, when we've got like a virus like this floating around, the last thing that we'd want to be doing is depressing our immune system, because by the time a real threat, a bacteria or a virus in this case, comes in, our immune system's punched out. It's kind of like, wow, I've been fighting for a long time here against this ambiguity called stress, where there's no real success. And that's when it starts, that's when we develop autoimmune issues, because we start tearing ourselves down as a result of that. Our immune system does that. So to me, that's one of the main things I look at in situations like this is, the consequences of, if people don't have a practice of being able to settle down, don't have a regular exercise routine, aren't eating in a healthy kind of way, all these are going to contribute to becoming a really nice host to this thing that, the only thing it lives on is lung tissue. That's it. That's all it likes.
Really? I did not know that.
That's all it likes. And so this is why what we're trying to do right now, by staying at home, even though we're the healthy ones, the longer that we can stay, we can flatten the curve. But the other thing that happens there is that, under the most optimal circumstances, and I'm not saying they're going to happen, but under the most optimal over a long period of time, and I mean long, what's going to happen is that there's no hosts. If people aren't congregating and around each other, there's no lungs for it to feed on, and it's going to start to die out, along with all the other things that hopefully will, being created, medically and all that. So one other point with just the whole fight, flight, and freeze is that the point that Stephen Porges makes that I think is just really, really brilliant, and I think it's not a known fact by most people, is when that kicks in, the body has made the decision. So in other words, this is from the brainstem on down. But what happens is, what's taking a ride on that is all of our higher cortical functioning, our neocortex, prefrontal lobe, all that. The part of us that thinks that we have a self, the part of, our usual when we think about who I am. So we're taking a ride on that. And consequently, if that's jacked up, then we're going to perceive things that aren't even threats as threats. We're going to be this is all research. Porges talks about this chapter after chapter. People are going to be more paranoid. They're going to be more suspicious. They're going to have a greater difficulty having a dialogue with people, especially if they disagree.
Can I ask you something on this? So when this is happening, is this an unconscious thing that's happening, or is it a conscious? I mean, it could be both. I get that, but are you saying that we're kind of almost hyper vigilant unconsciously without knowing it?
Yep, that's what I'm saying. That's what he's saying.
Okay.
And that's why I like the way he says it. He says the body decides. So the body has decided this giant, if you will, kind of all-encompassing state that we're in. And then our thought processes are inside of that state. So they're going to be influenced by, the chemistry that we've created through the fear circuitry. And by the vagus nerve, which connects all of our organs and goes right up through like our gut brain, our heart brain, right up into our head brain, connects all of those things together. And so when it's overstimulated, that's when we have the cortisol thing happening, and that's when we have the natural, regarding things as threats, where we're naturally kind of on guard, even to the extent, being paranoid, that sort of thing. And, you probably, I'm sure Stephen Porges were on the line right now, he would probably say, look around, and when you see the panic and hysteria, he would say the only thing that people can do to change this, but it's the simplest thing in the world, is they have to get control of their body. And the question is, well, how do you do that? And, this is going to be one of these ones where people are going to go, oh, geez, here goes Overdurf. Like we all know this. Yeah, I've known this thing since I started doing yoga when I was 15. It's been literally right under my nose. And now the research keeps pointing more and more towards this. And you've got to get control of your breathing.
So let me just pause you there for a second. It's just so everybody on the call can be clear about this. It sounds to me like you're saying that this vagus nerve that runs and connects pretty well who we are in our body, that can cause things to go awry, or it can bring things back into order. And you're saying that breathing is the first way, and I'm sure the people that do yoga and meditation and breathing exercise already know this, but for those that don't, that starts to do what to the vagus nerve when you breathe?
What it does is it downregulates it. So we switch from sympathetic arousal, which is fight and flight, into what's called parasympathetic arousal, which is more like the relaxation response, where we're in more of a state of relaxed alertness. It helps us slow our brain waves down. I won't get into a whole brain waving through the rhizome thing here, but just the quick version is, we're walking around most of the time in what's called low beta or high, most of the time low beta, maybe about 13, 15 cycles per second. That's when we're pretty synced up and we can talk to people and interact with people and think, be introspective, be expressive, all those kinds of things. But as our brain waves speed up, and what happens when we go into fight and flight, they do, as our brain waves speed up and we get up into like 20 hertz, 25 hertz in through there, that's where all the bad shit happens. So that's where it starts with overwhelm or confusion, then overwhelm, then things like, fear, panic, all that kind of stuff.
So the other
what we're going to do,
the other good stuff that's going on in your body is kind of still there, or does it turn it off? What happens? And it's still available to us. We just happen to be in a frequency or that shuts down a lot of things and then opens up a certain way of thinking with the cortisol as well, I guess is what you're saying.
Yep. All of this is happening in concert. It's just kind of a cascade. It's not really a causal kind of relationship. It's more nonlinear. It's more circular, more recursive, where one thing feeds the other.
Gotcha.
We tap into some nasty thinking because we get just a little bit revved up. Then the body responds to that. And then again that lights up the fear circuitry, and then we get that whole cycle going again.
So what happens if I want to do some meditation, or if I want to enter some spiritual states and this stuff is going on? What's the chances of that happening?
Not much. We're not going to be looking out for our brothers and sisters. We're going to be looking out for self. That's what's going to be happening survival. There. Yeah, we're not going to be going, wow, the reason why I need to self-isolate isn't necessarily for me. It's for like all the elders in our generation that are at risk. And how awful would it be to have, the people that have the greatest amount of experience on the planet, we just go, oh, well, they're old. So you know what? It's their time.
You said that to me yesterday, John. I got to tell you, there was really a nice shift when you were explaining the Madison thing and thinking about the elders, because really in the society and at the speed we've been going at, we've kind of left the elders behind. We've left something behind besides that. And I think this opportunity, even as bad as things are out there, it's also an opportunity for us to slow down and say, wait a minute, is this how, do we want to incorporate that knowledge in those people and the loved ones there, or just kind of put them to the side somehow? And I think that at least the attention and the awareness of them maybe begins to come back. You helped me with that yesterday, and seeing that to say, wow, I didn't think about this as a protection, because I had listened to an interview the other day and the guys say, why don't we just take the old people that are susceptible to this and put them in homes and let us get on with our society and have the economic thing. And I'm like, it kind of makes sense, but it didn't feel right. But then when I talked to you the next day and you said that about taking care of the elders, I'm like, that feels right. There's something about that to maybe get our values back in order or aligned, or look at them differently. And I said a lot of things, but I'll let you go ahead and.
No. Well, the thing and then you said that I thought was really cool, which I didn't know about. You were mentioning how wolf packs operate.
Yeah. Well, the wolf pack thing, I actually went online and looked, and it's kind of it's the idea is that the older of the wolf pack are the leaders, and then the more the alpha males are in the back that take care of it, but nobody goes faster. And I found out that that's really not true for wolves. It's kind of true, but but for other mammals such as whales and elephants, and think that is true. So yeah, go ahead.
Go ahead. No, I said go ahead.
No, that is true, but it's the sense of, even if we take the picture that from the wolf picture, basically it's the older and firmed up front, and then the alpha males are kind of scattered, and then some of the females in between, but the strongest are at the back, that they'll follow to make sure that everything else is protected in there. And I just love that concept to say, what if we integrated and use this to do that more, to bring more of that in there. And I think that's what you helped me do yesterday, was to say, that's in my thinking, but it wasn't apparent right now. And you helped bring it into the present thinking of saying, wow, that would be something. How would we do that? How could I do that to incorporate that? So I thought it was beautiful.
Yeah, we've got the opportunity to do it. When we were talking yesterday, and I was sitting out in the porch, and we're kind of like the pasture's kind of like it's a pasture. It's kind of like a donut. And we were surrounded by trees pretty much 360. And I look out at those trees and I go, we have trees that were here before I was ever born, and we have trees here that are going to be here when I die, and they'll still be here, many of them. And I had read a book, some of you might know about it. It's an awesome book. And at a time like this, it's kind of a really interesting book to read too. It's called The Hidden Life of Trees by Peter Wohlleben. And he was a forester I think still is, forester in Germany, responsible for maintaining forests. And of course, they would clear brush and they would do things to try to maintain these forests. And then when he with his background, he started to take a deeper dive into what was really best for the overall ecosystem. And one of the things that he discovered that's kind of interesting is that the elders in the forest, so the oldest trees, when they finally come down from a storm or rot, from termites or whatever, and that all that's left is the stump, all the trees that are adjacent, that are younger trees, their root systems try to still maintain connections with the stump that's left of the elder. And and you might think that, oh, well, it's never going to be able to grow back. That's true. But they actually make tributes of these. They actually make a tribute where they're still feeding it enough that there's stuff that's still growing on it, and it stays alive. And same with infirm trees, it's the same thing. Other trees surrounding the infirm trees will always try to reach out with their root systems and connect. And when they can't, they actually use mycelium, which is what about, I don't know what it's most of the earth is made of mycelium, substance in soils. It's a rhizome, and it's got, just to give you an idea, in 1 cubic inch of soil, if you stretched out the mycelium, it would be 7 miles long. So it's this interconnected web of information and nutrients and things, and they actually then become the first responders to the trees that allow the trees to be able to communicate with each other and to find ways to heal each other. And, you can just go, well, John's out in the country thinking all this hippie stuff and everything. But, the other thing to kind of really grab onto is that they survive us, not the other way around most of the time. And mycelium is the oldest living substance that breathes oxygen just like we do. So they're sentient in the sense that they're aware, but not the way we are. So that's where we've got the responsibility, to be in the right state so that we have a clear mind to be able to make the right decisions. And that kind of connects us back to, the whole polyvagal idea and breathing. One other little thing that I know Mark and I were talking about, and actually, Mark, you turned me on to this. You had sent me some papers on special ops training a couple of years ago.
That's right, the Air
and,
Force.
And then I did some of my own. Yeah. And, one of the metaphors I use a lot, is for Air Force pilots, when they're shot down behind enemy grounds and, let's just say that they're not, injured in a significant way. They are trained extensively to control breathing and self-talk. Extensively, and all the special ops are people, to the extent that when they're in a life-threatening situation, their pulse goes down, their respiration goes down, the sweat response goes down, their pulse lowers, all those things. And what they tell them is that if you're in enemy territory and all around you is chaotic and uncertain, that's not the time to strategize. The first thing you have to do is get control of your mind. How do you get control of your mind? Through your breath, because they already understood what Stephen Porges is telling everybody, is that if you're in fight and flight, then what's going to happen is it's going to color how you perceive the world. You're going to delete, distort, and generalize stuff, in a way that's not compatible probably with how you'd want to survive. And so the first thing they do is they have a little maxim that goes something like, the more uncertainty there is, the more you have to control what you can and not try to control what you don't. And that means it starts with your breathing. Only once you get your breathing under control and you get yourself settled down is it time to start to think strategically.
Let me interrupt you for a second, because I want you to say that again, because that was really good. Is about the uncertainty? Can you say that again? What you just said?
Sure. Their maxim, and I'm paraphrasing. They have it. It's a little snappier than what I'm saying probably, but the greater the chaos and uncertainty, the more what we have to do is pay attention to what we do have control over, not what we don't. And so what do we have to do? Well, the thing that we have the greatest amount of control over is us. And if you chunk down on that, it's our breathing, is because that starts the whole cascade. And so when we get control of our breathing, that's creating the kind of biochemical environment inside of us for us to be able to think clearly and to think responsibly and to be able to take, and this is a very important piece of it, to be able to take a much wider view. So the one thing that happens when we're in fight and flight is and high beta activity is our perception narrows dramatically. So we go into, really looking and tracking for one specific thing, a threat or something like that. And what happens when we do that is we lose context. And how we create meaning is by whatever the frame or the context we have. That's how it works, So essentially, the wider view, literally, those of you know the peripheral vision or spacious awareness, and we're going to be doing some of this stuff with y'all later on.
Yeah.
So we're just kind of laying out some ideas here.
Common themes.
That is exactly, is to the extent that we do that, what happens is that we can shift, from fight and flight into relaxed alertness, where we're our head, our heart, and our gut are all lined up. We're in a state of what's called coherence.
And it's fairly quick too. I remember years ago, I learned
Sure.
this from John back in '96, I think it was, and you used to call the initial version of it "Mind Power for Life." And I used to go out and I'd teach little seminars doing the Mind Power for Life, and it was just such an amazing thing. But the word here is the optimal word to me was quickly. Is how quickly this works.
Yep. See, the one thing is to maintain even an unwanted state, the longest you can coast biochemically, and different people differ on this, but most people would say 10 seconds would be about right, 6 to 10 seconds, and at the longest it would be 45. So then the question is well, how can we feel, so worked up for so long? That's where our higher thinking comes in. That's where we go, oh my God, I'm feeling this, and that means this thing's going to happen. And then we are no longer in the present. We're either tripping out into the future, making really bad scenarios, which of course affects us how we feel now, or we're relating it to things that happened in the past that are similar in nature. And once we get that whole merry-go-round going, the net effect is we feel like we're feeling this particular state all the time, when in fact we're really not. What we're doing is we're re-upping it like every 10 seconds with
pushing
another
that
thought.
button, like that button,
exactly.
that red button on TV that you see. I don't want this. Well, stop pushing the button then.
Exactly. And see, once that gets going, what most of us try to do is we try to do it either by doing something, externally, or we try to manage it by thinking differently. And if we go back to the whole premise that I subscribe to, if you haven't figured it out, I'm kind of like into this, is that the mind, or the mind's, is the rider, and the horse has already decided the direction. The body's already decided. So the only way to really effectively on our own to really shift that is to be able to, get into a breathing pattern where it's slower, where we're extending the exhale. And eventually you can even get into more like 6 seconds in and 6 seconds out, which is shown to amplify delta activity, which is profound rest and all of that. And we'll, like I said, Mark and I we're gonna do a little kind of tag team thing on doing a little induction with you guys around some of this stuff. But with all the time that most of us are going to have, this is kind of the opportunity, to do some neuroplasticity experiments on yourself, y'all, like start to go, okay, so God, the universe, evolution gave me the fear circuitry, we came, come from the factory with that, that's wired in heavy. It's the most thickest bundles of nerves we have, and neurons in our brain.
Like 4 to 1
when we're born.
Like that, isn't it?
And what happens is, it's literally like, whoever, however this whole thing got set up in us, it's like, well, we're going to make sure that you can get away from threats that are imminent threats, that are immediate threats. But to feel good in life, that's going to be on you. You're going to have to develop that circuitry yourself. So the more that we can focus on, what's everything else that's not the virus that you haven't paid attention to before in your life? Like, what are all the things that you haven't done that now you have the opportunity to do or be? And to practice that, and like I said, it's like you could be having your own neuroplasticity experiment going on, where it's like, we're going to have plenty of time to do it because this is going to go on for months, is what most people are saying, probably even longer than a few. So we're going to get to see who we are, we're going to get to see who we are as individuals, and we're going to get to see who we are collectively.
Well, I want to ask you about that real quick, because the aspect of, okay, so we're going to do this meditation induction that for people. What does that offer them if they're able to go into the parasympathetic nervous system and settle down the cortisol and settle down these things during this period of time that we're going to have, however long it's going to be? what opportunity do we have to develop? I mean, I know I use it with clients all the time now in the
Hmm.
upgraded version that we're going to do with people, and the results are just phenomenal. But it gives people access to something. How would you describe what it gives people access to?
Well, probably the most important thing is it gives us access to the present moment, and to be able to take in what we do have rather than what we think we're losing, or what we don't have.
Say that again. That was
It
really nice.
it
We could
allows
take
us to
in.
be in
Go
the
ahead.
present moment, to literally open the present that is all of what we actually do have. All of what we do have within our bodies, within our minds, within our immediate family and friends. Maybe it's the smell of a flower. Maybe it's looking up and watching a sunset. Maybe it's just lying in the grass. Maybe it's reading a really good book. But being able to actually be in the present moment and take in what's good. And so that's really, really hard to do when we're jacked up in like high beta. It's just not there because of all the things that we already talked about. So, so there's some really great, very simple, basically physical mechanisms that we all can do, starting with relaxing your tongue, the back of your tongue, relaxing your jaw, and we'll talk a little bit about why that's important, and then slowing down your breathing. Just that as meditation. That's what I do every morning. I do that
Yeah.
for about a half an hour every morning. Have been, when I got on to this, I've been doing this stuff for a long time, and that particular thing, we call it the alpha sequence, because what it does is it calms down beta waves and it gets us into alpha, which allows us to have context. It also allows the information from our body to come up through our right hemisphere and get into our left hemisphere, which does all the planning and thinking and rumination and worry and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah,
So,
I like that aspect of it in what you're talking about. That what you're saying is that the first thing we do when we get upset is we lose context. So part of
yes,
the alpha sequence is the ability to begin to gain context back, because it's
yes.
going to give us, it's going to inform us at a different level. It's going to give us information that could be very useful to us that would not be available if we were in a stress position.
Sure. I mean, just in the simplest way, just thinking about where we mark time, for example, the beginning of something and the end of something. When we look at this whole virus thing, well, the thing that's freaking people out so much is nobody really knows in any way to predict what that is. We kind of know where it started. But see, if we focus only inside, if we live inside of that time frame, that's going to, for many people, that's going to add stress, as opposed to, well, how many years have you been around before this ever came around? And, how many years, may you be living after this? And when you see a much, much wider period of time, even something that could last 12 months or 18 months, which is probably the worst predictions that people make, is really not, as big as we can make it, except when we're like right in it and bouncing back and forth about what's going to happen 3 months from now, or, trying to make plans, all that kind of stuff. And there's nothing wrong with making plans. But the thing is, again, it's what state are you in when you're making them?
Yeah,
With what's
that's
happening
key.
now,
That's
that's
key.
it. To me, that's the whole
Yep,
game right
that's
there,
it.
Are people, I realize, man, people are taking a big hit, a huge hit. Everybody is economically. But then if we're making decisions about our economic future or what we're going to do to, to try to rectify that, to try to help that, and we're doing it out of greed, we're doing it out of anger, we're doing it out of fear and desperation, it's like planting seeds in a crop where the field that you have is all those things, and
Yeah.
you plant some new seeds. Well, the new seeds will grow into something that's a slightly more sophisticated version of what you had in the form of anger, fear, greed, and all that.
Yeah.
But it's basically being born from that state. As opposed to getting ourselves in the best possible state, and then you make your plans. Then you decide, what do I want to do strategically? Same thing the Air Force teaches the pilots.
Yeah. And to me, that's again, the whole thing is a state, because if we can manage that and help other people around us manage that, now we start to be in concert, so to speak, not only in our body but with those around us. And then what's the possibility of helping people have that happen within themselves, and then the connection, how we connect with each other during this crisis, from those states, if we're in similar states, it's
it.
It's going to make a whole different.
It could be huge. It could be hugely powerful. It could be really. I mean, there's an opportunity here for there to be a real cultural shift, in my opinion.
Exactly.
And not just in the United States. I mean, throughout the entire world, globally. Where people, are going to be. It's like, people talk about the incubation period with the virus. We're in an incubation period right now to transform our culture, if we want to think about it that way.
That's a good way of framing it, an incubation period, because it's viral, right? Let's make a different virus out of this
exactly.
situation.
Yeah. Let's make letting go of a form of something that we can't have right now, in terms of our everyday life. Let's make that viral, letting go of that form to allow something else new to emerge.
That's like the neural pathways, right, John? When you talk about this, if we have a strong neural pathway that's we're using in a negative way, can we use that same neural pathway to, transmute it or change it or shift it around? And it sounds to me that's something similar about what you're saying.
Yeah. Well, it's the same thing that you were saying. I liked what you were saying about, the idea of collectively what can really happen. I mean, we can make, the way I think about it is we can make a healthy, we all can make a healthy contribution here. And the first one is, just by not doing things that we know could be spreading something that's, highly contagious. That's the first thing.
That's it.
But the other one is to incubate what we have. What are all the untapped potentials that we have inside of ourselves that we're always too busy, to really settle back and to really get a bit more, to self-examine, to become
Can I interrupt you on that one? Because
sure.
That's kind of what I was asking earlier. I was asking more about like when we're looking at Anna Wise's work and what we're doing through Telecoaching University, where you talk about that we're dropping down into theta, and when we're into a theta state, which a lot of us have before we go to sleep, there's some real magic, insights that start to come up for people, like, oh, I get it now. Well, they couldn't see it before in alpha or beta, but in theta, and also people may have some paranormal stuff start happening. There's all kinds of things that we see that if we can get down there, and especially as a group, to start to say, all right, let's all of us take heed and kind of say, how can we connect in a different way? And then any other crisis that comes up, I'm kind of jumping ahead, my what if stuff, any other crisis that comes up in the future, if we immediately start to go into this way of thinking and this way of being and feeling, what's that going to do for future crises as well?
Right.
I said a lot there, so you take it.
No, it's awesome. Thanks, buddy. You threw me about 5 really big softballs right over the plate, so that's awesome.
All right.
No, you're really good at that, Mark. You are really. You're a great interviewer. It's really great to do this with you, by the way.
Thanks.
See, one way that I like to explain to people in terms of brain waves, I wasn't going to do this, but since we're right here, I might as well. So you've got beta, which are pretty fast. And as I said, when we're in the low end of that, we're functioning really well. When we get in the high end, not so much. We have alpha, which is going to become very important here in a second when I explain the other two. And then we've got theta, which is, usually 4 to 8 cycles per second, people say, and then delta 1 to 4. Most people only experience delta waves when they're asleep. That's it. But when we are experiencing them when we sleep, that's when our body physically restores itself. So the whole biochemistry of physical restoration occurs in delta and low theta, to be able to recover from the effects of stress and things like that. We don't have to rely just on sleep, which is probably the best stress buster out there, by the way, getting good sleep. But, and along with that, to the extent that you can learn to meditate. Now, here's where it's really interesting. And this woman named Anna Wise, who I'm forever indebted with the research that she did, it's just, she's not very well known. She's in the great beyond now, but most of you that have known me over the last year or so know that, I think her work is some of the most valuable stuff that I've come across, and it dovetails with a lot of the stuff we already knew, but in a way that they were measuring people's EEG waves consistently, each client, to see what the effects were of doing different things physically, or if we make certain suggestions, all that kind of stuff. That's a whole other thing there. But what's important is this. What she found was that people who have major disruptions in their psychology, in their emotional states, usually what happens is, if you could picture almost like an hourglass, where the top part of it that's really open is beta, so that's like super active. And then the bottom of it is not quite as open, but it's like the bottom of an hourglass, and that's where delta and theta are. And they're kind of like, they got things to tell you, that there's information that you could be learning there. There's things that you could be doing in terms of accessing healing in your body and in your psyche. But see, if that middle part is squeezed off, then one can't communicate to the other. And we get people that are operating totally from their head and no heart or very little heart, or they can't take right action. And it's only when we open, like what I like to call open the alpha pipeline, getting into that relaxed alert state allows for a free flow of communication from your conscious mind to what we could call your subconscious and your unconscious mind. And that's the value in all of this, getting the insights that you get. But I mean, our Veterans Administration used binaural beats just to teach vets who had PTS, post-traumatic stress, to go to theta. And when they would, and that's all they did was just teach them how to go to theta. And then if they would actually ask them to relive the experiences that were the traumatic ones, that were, related to the reason why they were having issues, what happens is that they can experience the information, but the kinesthetics fall off. So literally, it is a state of psychological healing just itself, not without any fancy techniques, but just being able to access that state itself has those benefits. Is that the stuff you wanted me to talk about?
Oh yeah.
I'm not sure.
You're on a phone and you can't see what I was doing, but I went and found a little bit of Anna Wise's, the shapes that you were talking about. And then I
cool.
found one that was kind of interactive, colored and moving around a little bit, and then shared that on the screen. So hopefully everybody was able to get a sense of what you were talking about. But yeah, and I think that the sense is to say, when life is going normal and we're going at a normal speed, we have a tendency to forget about things. Daily life gets away with, we get habitualized, I'm saying that right, into our daily life.
Mm-hmm.
And we forget about this. And this is, we were talking also, you had mentioned there's a symbol that, that people use, that the symbol represents both chaos and opportunity.
Oh, calligraphy. Yeah, we were talking about that yesterday. Yeah, that, it's the, how would you say that? The calligraphic of crisis.
Crisis.
And it's actually two symbols next to each other, but it's one word. It's crisis. But what the two separate things mean is one means danger and the other means opportunity. So a crisis, danger, and opportunity. They both coexist.
Together like a yin-yang symbol in a sense.
Yep.
And so the opportunity that is available to us at this point is to say, okay, your normal life is kind of on pause right now. A lot of you, maybe
it
not.
Is.
Maybe some people are still going, but probably most of you on the call, your normal life is on pause. And what a great opportunity to say, during this period of time, do we go down the normal habitual behavior that we normally have, or can we take this opportunity to really get a sense and insights inside of us and how to open ourselves up to get more insights in our life and practice this during this time, so that when we all begin to go forward back into our life, we have a new skill that we can bring into the world with us, that we've actually done something to benefit ourselves, our family, our employees, or people that we work with, and the world that we're in. And that's what John and I are looking to do, and what we talked about is how can we help people get this for our own sake as well, because if it helps you, it helps us.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of us are very fortunate to know some of the things that we know that aren't necessarily completely mainstream out there, that it just seems like if we could get people to pay attention to some of this, it could make a difference. That's how I feel about it. And The whole idea, like you're saying, Mark, about, we've got time, and yeah, and I realize with families it might not, it could be even more hectic in the sense that you're all together and you're not necessarily always all together, but it's still the opportunity to be able to connect. It's still an opportunity to be present to our children, and family members, and and cultivate those relationships in a different kind of way than what we had. And uh, Rick Hansen, who's a neuroscientist who's written some great book that he wrote many years, well, not many, but probably maybe 8 years ago, maybe, not sure, maybe 10, called The Buddha's Brain. And it's really a book on neuroscience, but it's just echoing all the, not just Buddhist, but really contemplative traditions and what they talk about. And he has an expression that I mentioned earlier called taking in the good. And he explains that, of course, we can be having a great day, and we have like one little screw up that happens at the end of the day, and then sometimes we can let that kind of mess everything up for the rest of the day. And of course, that's called the negativity bias. That's what I've been referring to as the fear circuitry and overstimulating the vagus nerve. But he said, in order to be able to really make the change, we have to take in the good. And what he says is, are we capable of having what we would normally just call good facts in life become, or just facts in life, become good experiences where we can linger on them? And see, we have to do that for the neuroplasticity to work. So, for another, just as an example, walking outside on a spring day, spring here, it's been spring here for a while, and to smell things that I haven't smelled for a few months, and to just stop. And as he says, it takes about 30 seconds to begin to create any kind of neuroplasticity effect with positive things like that. But the more that we're willing to do that and just stop and take in the good, and kind of linger on it for a little bit and really appreciate it, whether it's food, whether it's the touch of somebody that we love, whether it's petting an animal, looking at an animal, having them look back at us, looking at nature, all those kinds of things. We can actually be using this time, because usually it's like people go, oh, I wish I had time to do this sort of thing. Well, most of us have it now.
Yeah.
It's kind of like, the proclamation came down, and it's like, okay, here's the global reset. Everybody said you didn't have time for this.
Yeah.
Other than the emergency workers, and the first responders, we're the ones, we're the ones that had that opportunity.
That's a really good thing. That's almost like the world. Everybody says, "God, if I had more time, I'd do this. If I haven't," it's like the world said, "Oh, the universe says, okay, now you have it. So what are you going to do with it?
What are you going to do with it?" And we're going to take away most of the kinds of material things that you have, or opportunities that you have that distract you. And now we're going to strip it all down. And the only thing that we really have that's different, that's great, is we've got technology. So we have the opportunity to be able to connect, and that, to me, that's the big reframe. It's like, what are all the ways that we can connect that we haven't been using before, or all the other ways? And I'm not just including technology. I'm going to go a little woo here. I'm not going to go total woo woo, but I'm going to go woo. And that is, what are all the ways that you can connect to people beyond them being in your physical presence, and beyond technology that you've never experienced in a regular way, but could.
I think that's it, John. If you take what we're going to do with the exercise here in a minute, and say, now we already know how to approach positive things. We already know how to go out there into the. What if you now had a way to spend a few minutes to kind of access some deeper places inside of you, and then go out and touch the world and touch people in different ways? Now
Exactly.
It's a whole different situation. And using it with my work with clients, when I work with clients, my family, the thing is that sometimes you slip down the slippery slope, and I'm in it before I get it, and then I'm catching myself quicker. And the thing is that
Mm-hmm.
the more you practice it, like anything, it becomes ingrained in the neuroplasticity starts to change, and we can start incorporating. It becomes easier to do. At first, it's like learning anything. You've got to
Yeah,
remember to do it, and what was it? What was that step? Did I do that? But once you start practicing and doing it, and integrating, and then stepping out into your world, if you can do it at this level, and this level of crisis, what can you do when things get back to normal?
exactly. And that's it, and that's the opportunity. It's kind of like my father-in-law said, it's almost like the world in some ways is in suspended animation.
Yeah.
But as that outside world that we all call our world is in suspended animation, we can still be working behind the scenes so that when all of a sudden everything starts back up again, we're starting as a completely different person than we were before in a better way,
Nice.
you know?
Lindy said that, huh?
Yeah, he did.
That's great.
87 years old. Both
87.
both of Kirsten's parents are 87 years old. So
Yeah.
there are some of the elders that I think about wanting to take care of because every time I'm around them, I learn something from them.
Tell before we start on the process, that go back to, and this I'm going to tie it into our friend Tim McNichol's question. What do y'all consider elder? So I think he's on that border. He's on the border, and he's not sure what that is. But what is what is it?
Tim, we hereby proclaim that you can be an elder if you want to be.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, Mark. Go ahead.
No, that's fine. That's funny. So what is, besides the age aspect of it, what does elder mean to you, John? Well, I mean, because it seems like when you talk about it, there's a reverence for it that's different.
It's the wisdom of the tribe.
The wisdom of
the wisdom of the tribe. It's the collective, it's the collective, it's one thing to be a smart person. That's great. Smart, that's okay. But when you add, life experience, and then, I don't need to go on a big thing about that. I think most people understand it's one thing to know something in an intellectual way. It's a whole nother way to be able to do it and to experience it and to live it. And, as my wife Kirsten says, it's one of my favorite, I put it up at the beginning of a lot of seminars on the flip chart when people walk in. You can't microwave experience. You can't microwave experience.
That goes deep. You got to kind of sit with that one sometimes. You think it's just a quick phrase up in your head.
Oh, yeah.
Sit with that. Because whoa.
Everybody's into hacks, everybody's into hacks and shortcuts and, fast. And I was part of a field for a lot of years called NLP that was kind of like the big promise there. And the fact of the matter is change takes however long it takes. And sometimes we do know things that are faster than other ways, but there's no substitute for experience. There just isn't, And so, for me, when I look at people that are older than me, or just people that might even be younger than me, but have a lot of experience in an area of which I have, zero or very little, or at least not what they have. To me, that kind of makes them an elder in that area because they've just spent more time on something that, I'm ignorant about, But, classically, it's going to be the people that usually are older. They've been around. Their perspective and understanding of the world and the cycles that the world goes through, just by virtue of the fact that they've been on the planet longer, is going to be more enlightened than those of us that haven't been around as long.
And when you say it, I got to tell you, it's what it does is it makes me realize that's mine. That's available.
Mm-hmm.
It's not something that's being forced on me. It's like a gift, an inheritance that's like, wow, I need to take possession of that before it goes away. That's meant for all of us. And then we're the wisdom that we pass on to the people younger than us.
We're going through something that, at least up to this point, except for, well, let's put it this way. There are still people alive that experienced World War III and the Depression in World War III, or World War III, yeah.
I was going to say,
interesting Freudian slip there. Yeah, interesting Freudian slip. World War II. And, when I was talking to Kirsten's dad, we were just sharing things, and I said, I would just have to imagine this is the closest, World War II would have to be the closest thing to anything like this. And he said, he actually said, this is what it feels like, except there, it went on for 4 years, think about people who lived in Europe, like a lot of the friends that I have, whose families lived basically in a battlefield for 4 years.
Yeah.
And we think this is hard, you know?
Yeah.
Um,
Sit on
this
our
is a little
couch,
bit
we can
different.
handle that, right? Sit on our couch for
Yeah.
compared to being called to war overseas. I think we got a similar situation, but we can deal with
Yeah,
that. Yes.
but we're all going through something here that it's unprecedented. There's no immunity that people know about with this. So that's going to be developing over a period of time. Probably when the first responders, some of them will get sick, some of them won't get sick, but they'll be exposed to the virus, and then they'll start to develop immunity. And that's going to take a long time for that to really kind of flatten things out, and I forget what they call it in epidemiology, I think, or virology, that I think they call it like the golden circle or something. And it's finally when enough people have been exposed that are well, and a vaccine is also developed, and it's when both of those, that's when you have herd immunity, and that's a long damn time from now. I can tell you that.
Yeah.
So we got plenty of time. I kind of feel like we're in this seminar. It's like we've been talking, and we kind of go, okay, it's time to do an exercise. Everybody goes, okay, break up into whatever groups you want, and it starts now. And well, this one's going to go for maybe 6 months.
Who knows? 6 months?
So yeah. So come back in 6 months, and we'll all process the exercise.
Yeah.
Or maybe a year or whatever it's going to be.
Yeah, it's amazing. I mean, I'll go a little woo myself, and I go out on my what if thinking, which I like to travel far out there. And I say, I said to Kathy, my wife, this morning, I was just like, what if it's the situation where something new is coming in, changing gears in and a different level, and the virus is out there to kind of cause us to slow down to prepare for the shift in gears.
Yes. I mean, I don't know any other frame to take that's going to be useful. You know what I mean? I mean, we're all in this together. So to me, that seems to be the best use of our thinking, is to really look at it that way. And, in better times, when I would talk about uncertainty, I would say, anytime you talk about uncertainty, just cross out the word uncertainty, and had to let our kitty out here, and write possibility. Because the other way to think about it is the only place that true possibility exists is in uncertainty. Otherwise, it's just kind of a reformulation of things that are certain, and some nice combinations there. But it's only kind of when we set foot in uncertainty that it opens us up to have, and this time the choice was made for us. Uncertainty really opened the door, so to speak, and helps us realize that we live our lives as if things are certain, and they're not. Things can change just like that, and this is a pretty good example of that.
Yeah, I like that, how you say that too. The flip side of the coin of uncertainty is possibility, and we don't consider that when we contract and go into foveal vision, and things are, we don't have the connection that's there. But through the exercise we're getting ready to do here, you'll be able to start open that up, and have the connection with yourself and your world and the space around you, and it seems like that from that angle of connection, that then we're able to enter into possibility. So when part of this, when we go from the alpha and we go down deeper, you're opening up possibility circuits. You're kind of almost tricking your body, and you talk about some crossover switches, the things that happen automatically via our unconscious, but you can cross over and bring them into conscious, the way you focus your eyes, the way you breathe, your internal dialogue. Those are crossover switches, things that we can do consciously, and be aware of it, that to begin the process to settle us down, to look at this reality, to say, okay, that from this perspective it looks this way. However, if we start to engage the vagal nerve, and we start to do these crossover switches, we can kick ourselves into possibility thinking and say, wow, what is available that I haven't been into, that's been in the background? Bring that to the foreground and say, oh, I didn't think about this. I can do this, or this insight is coming in, or here's an idea for work that I could do something different to create income, or I could connect with my neighbors or my friends, or stuff that you wouldn't even consider from that very constricted foveal point of view.
Well, Mark, you just summed up in about like 3 minutes what I've been trying to say now for about an hour. So good job, buddy. That's it. I'm totally, yes, 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 yes. Yeah. Yeah.
So how would if the people that are on the call now, we're getting ready we'll go into because it's about 10 after, I think right now, and we'll go into the exercise, and then we'll take maybe a few questions if we have time left at the end, depending on what your time is too, if you're available.
Okay.
So how would people, go ahead, how would they hold, what would you have them do or think of or hold in mind in their body about how they might want to be, or an issue that they have that this would help them with?
Well, I think just the first thing is, I would just say, set an intention in terms of how you'd like to be feeling throughout this experience. We're going to do some things and make some pretty obvious suggestions at certain points. So and make sure that you're at a place where, let's just say for the next 15 or 20 minutes or so, that, you're probably not going to have to be interrupted for anything. If you want to lie down, you could lie down. Certainly would be fine. It'll help if your spine's straight, but you could be sitting up or you could be lying down. And we're going to take you through a process that we call the alpha sequence. And I'll just say, just to set it up, each one of these things are essentially physiological mechanisms that will kind of make it easy. You're kind of gliding, as I like to say, on the natural tendencies of the nervous system. So there's not, and the idea, the main energy you want to have as we go through this is one of allowing, not directing. You're not going to really have to direct yourself to do anything. It's much more allowing what your body already knows how to do when you give it a chance. So closing your eyes will be one part of it. That's kind of an obvious thing, but just so you know, as soon as you close your eyes, you're going to go into alpha for a small, probably maybe 10 seconds, just because we shut off all of our visual stimuli at that point. So it takes a little bit. So what happens usually is that we go into alpha. If we were hooked up to an EEG, we would see that. But then what happens is, once we know that the visual information is not available anymore, people can go into their monkey mind thinking, and they can jack themselves right up into beta again. And so to put this in more scientific terms, what we're learning to do is what's called down-regulate or default mode network. And that's the part of us that trips out in the future and catastrophizes and worries. That's what's relevant to this, at least. And also keeps us consistent with who we think we've been as opposed to who you can become. So then we're going to be doing the relaxing the back of the tongue, and Mark will walk you through this, and then I'll kind of jump in a little bit. And what's relevant about that is when you relax your tongue, the back of your tongue, what begins to happen is you are sending fewer signals to your default mode network in your left hemisphere where language is. And so what that does is it tends to calm down beta activity and starts to get you to slow down. Same with your jaw. When you loosen your jaw, it's one of the easiest ways to stimulate your vagus nerve so that it downshifts. And then we'll get into some breathing, and then we got a couple other things that we'll be throwing in there. But that's the basic thing. I do this every day. And think of it this way. Think about, you could make today the first day that you start a practice. And all I would say to you is what we say to everybody: just make a deal with yourself that you're going to do it for 5 minutes. Just 5 minutes. I mean, 5 fucking minutes. Who can't do that? And in fact, any positive habit, think about it that way. Like, I like to take it down to a level where you just go, I have no excuses. I can't say I don't have time, So we all have time, and going from zero meditating, because that's what we're doing here, to meditating is one of the most significant things that you could do, because you're going from nothing to something. You're going from no practice to having to make the adjustments on the inside to make it important enough for you to make this part of what you do. So it's not about, well, I did it for an hour on Tuesday, but I didn't do it the rest of the week. You're much better off doing it for a few minutes every single day. If you want to, do it twice a day, but make it something that, paint yourself in the corner and go, I've got no excuses for this one. So I think,
Yeah.
Yeah, well, all that you got there was a page out of John's way of creating new habits for himself. You know,
And I think they're
to deal
already
with my
starting,
stubbornness.
yes, to understand the process through your description. Very good. So you tell me when
So,
you're ready, buddy.
yeah, so let's roll.
All right. So just kind of get yourselves comfortable, and it could be laying down, it could be sitting up. And for those of you that don't want to close your eyes or can't close your eyes and want to keep them open, then I highly recommend you just go into peripheral vision. And if you're looking at the screen, you can see me now. I start to look and notice what's on the side, maybe up and down as well, to the extent of the edges of my vision. And for those of you that can close your eyes, just go ahead and allow them to close. We'll sit here for 15, 20 minutes or so. And if those of you have to leave or do something else, please feel free. And those of you that can stay, we might have a few questions depending on the time and John's schedule. So as you've got your eyes closed, the first thing we want to concentrate on, which John talked about fantastically, is starting to breathe. Maybe breathe deeply if you can. Breathe in through your nose. And if you can, twice as long out through your mouth. So that could be the count of 1 to 2, 2 to 4, 3 to 6, just twice as long approximately. Breathing out through your mouth, twice as long. And if you have trouble with breathing in your nose, just breathe out and in through your mouth.
And as this is occurring, I'm sorry, go ahead, Mark.
Yeah, it's the key here is if you can begin to slow that breathing down.
That's right.
Once you get into the rhythm, go ahead, John.
Slowing down your breathing and just relaxing your tongue. Just go ahead and kind of have the sense that you're relaxing the back of your tongue. Because again, what this does is it allows fewer signals to be going up into your left hemisphere, which is where language and thought is. And just relaxing your tongue. And you might even notice that as you do that, your jaw can begin to loosen.
And maybe open a little.
So relax tongue, back of your tongue, relax jaw. And as Mark said, just beginning to slow down your breathing. And you can do it in a really natural kind of way. You don't have to kind of direct it, but just kind of making the effort that the exhale is a little bit longer. And so therefore the inhale is just a little bit deeper. And the whole energy is one of allowing, like you're literally allowing a pipeline to open between the deeper aspects of you and your conscious awareness.
It's easily slowing down. You might even notice the muscles under your eyes beginning to relax with your eyes closed. Different parts of your body that you haven't been aware of yet, relaxing, loosening up as you continue to breathe deep, relaxing your jaw.
That's right. And even having a moment, maybe when you get to the next exhale, where you just linger for a moment or two or a few moments in between the inhale and the exhale at that still point. Just hang out there for a moment before you take in the next inspiration.
Still breathing, relaxing, jaw and tongue relaxed.
And as you are, have a sense that you could be breathing in and out through your heart. Breathing in through your heart and out through your heart. And again, this is all based on research in terms of being able to stabilize you in a state of coherence between your head, brain, and your heart.
In and out through your heart. It's so easy to feel that air coming in through your heart and out.
Having a sense of the spaciousness inside your body, almost like within the contours of your body, having a sense of like the space within your head. And as your tongue's relaxed and back of your tongue's relaxing and your jaw's loosening, that space within your throat going all the way down into your torso. And having a sense of all the spaciousness on the inside, all the way down through your legs, all the way down to the soles of your feet, as well as down through your shoulders and arms.
Lots of
Just as if
space.
it's all spaciousness.
Expanding. Letting your breathing slow and easy. Very easy. In and out through your heart. Breathing. Relaxing. Spaciousness. Inside and out.
Knowing as you are making a healthy contribution to you. And how far can a change go? You just never know.
Never know. Just
how
keeps
far
going.
change will go. All change starts from the inside. It all
Right
starts
now.
with a thought.
Right
and
now.
then you add energy. Every person on this call started with a thought of someone else. So just tongues relaxed, jaws loose, slowing down your breathing as you're breathing in and out through your heart into the spaciousness within you.
And you might even know the spaciousness. Notice between your thoughts. If you're having any thoughts, noticing your body. Deep, easy breathing. Spaciousness. Inside and out. Expanding outwards. You may begin to notice the space that's in your body also. There's space between you and the computer screen. Space between you and the walls of this room, the ceiling, the floor. The same part that connects the spaciousness inside connects the spaciousness outside. Outside of the room. How far does it go? Outside the
And
building.
just being with this experience.
That's right.
Expanding your awareness all the way out.
That's right.
And as this is happening on one level, on another level, we'd like to invite you to consider how you will be, how you would be, when we're all on the other side of this whole crisis.
The other side.
How would you be as a person on the other side of this, where you realize by all available evidence, things, it's behind us, and you're moving forward in your life?
You made it through.
And as you are considering this, of course, in the beginning, there's just that release, that natural relief of knowing, oh my God, life is returning, not back to normal, but hopefully even better.
How nice.
And once you kind of get past just the relief of, oh my God, we're all going to be okay, life moves on. How would you be then as a person moving forward?
What's going on inside of you now as you consider how it would be then. You made it.
And realizing that whatever you can be feeling now transcends time, because you can be feeling this now in your body.
That's right.
To the extent that you are open and allow, how would you be on the other side of all of that happened? You don't have to know how it happened, what period of time, but just you're on the other side of it, and life is moving forward.
And you've practiced this many times, and you're really good at it, knowing that you have this to take forward with you.
And to consider looking back on that whole period of time when you might have been social distancing, you might have been self-quarantining, certainly your life was different. From this vantage point here on the other side of it, looking back,
That's right.
and you think of you, what are you most proud of?
You did it.
What decisions did you make that you feel really good about?
All those great decisions.
What have you learned?
You have learned.
What's really important to you, having gone through that experience?
Now.
Who are you connecting with? What new connections did you make?
All those connections available to you now.
What new, perhaps productive habits you created?
They're there.
What have you become? And who are you becoming? Just being you. And just allow yourself to kind of hang out in this for a while. We're not going to say anything for a little bit. Just maintaining your breathing, relaxed tongue, relaxed jaw, breathing in and out through your heart. And perhaps your mind will wander to other things, or perhaps not.
That's right.
It's just all about allowing what is and just being you as you are right here and now. And as you're in this stillness, let's be really straightforward and honest here. That just by doing this process, there's no guarantee that you will change in obvious beneficial ways, that you'll feel differently. experience physical comfort, deep healing, perhaps establish a new healthy habit while dropping an old unproductive one. Maybe relate differently to others, become more creative, being more loving when it really matters.
Possibilities.
Enjoying the little things and really take in the good life has to offer as a result of listening to this. Just as there's absolutely no guarantees in this life. It's what we're all dealing with. So I want to remind you all of something. All therapeutic change occurs despite the fact there's no guarantee. Just as every successful change you've ever made in your life occurred despite there being no guarantee that it will happen.
You never know how far a change will go.
That's right. So given how things can be, we have no idea of, whether you'll even notice that you've changed or are changing over time in the way that you might have expected. It might be sometimes really soon, or maybe not. Maybe sometime when you least expect it. And you were thinking, I didn't know that you could be feeling this good. Or maybe not. It might really take someone else saying something to you that reminds you you've changed in a way that pleasantly surprises you.
Aware of new things.
And of course, since there's no guarantees, there's really no way to know exactly when any of this will happen, or especially in exactly what way.
That's right.
Because as we're experiencing, life can be pretty darn unpredictable.
Sure can.
There are no guarantees, y'all.
Except for change.
Exactly, right. So what does that all mean for you? Well, it means that's your choice. And how cool is that?
I think it's very cool.
And so you can slowly just kind of be aware of your arms and your legs, where you are in whatever context you're in right now. When you're ready, you might even open your eyes, or maybe take a couple nice, deep, really deep breaths and exhale before you do, or just after you do. Maybe look across the room and focus in on something, and then kind of like go wide focus with something.
Yeah. You can maintain the feelings even though you're looking outside. Seeing it now with your eyes open when you're ready. Reconnect with yourself.
And realize that you can be doing just the simple process of just closing your eyes, relaxing the back of your tongue, relaxing your jaw, and slowing down your breathing. And it's exactly the same as training your muscles, because you're training pathways. And consistency is more important than anything.
And it
So
might
do
become,
it for 5 minutes.
And who knows, it might become automatic and easier.
Okay. Mark, you can probably see the folks, or some of them still hanging, or
Well, let me see. I'm just thinking maybe some of the ones that have already opened their eyes. Are you okay with maybe people reporting
yeah,
on experience or so? If you want
sure,
to,
sure,
there's a
sure.
little button that should say raise hands there if you want to comment or ask John a question, but I'd love to hear how people's experience
Or
was.
Mark.
Maybe.
I mean, yeah.
Yeah. I forget sometimes, John. Thanks for helping me remember.
You've read more books than I'll ever read. I can tell you that, Mark.
You know, you've probably finished a lot more books than I've read, though. You know what I mean? So somebody has their hand up. Let's see. Andrew, let me see. I think you're off. Are you off mute, Andrew? It looks like you're. I don't see Andrew. Maybe say something. Oh, no, he's talking, but I don't. Let me. I got him on. Is your microphone on mute? Because I've got you unmuted. I can see you speaking, Andrew, but I can't. I've got you unmuted. It says unmuted, and I'm not sure. I'm not picking you up, Andrew. I'm sorry. There was a mute button and unmuting, or unmuting, unmute. All right, we got. Who else do we got? Are you waving, Michael, or is that got your hand up? Let me. Okay, can you speak? Can I hear you?
Can you hear me?
I can hear you now. This is
Yeah.
Michael from China at 3 a.m., 3:30 probably, right?
Yeah, it's about 3:40 right now.
3:40.
Bless you. Bless you, Michael.
Yes.
Good for you.
I'm about 300 miles north of Wuhan here, and one of the things that in this, first of all, I want to say this is that this induction, this meditation, is really quite different from anything I've ever experienced before. But really more intense and easy. But one of the things that I was reflecting on in all of this, I'm at the end of, we're getting life back to normal here right now. And so I'm 63 days in isolation right now where I'm at. And I'm just reflecting on what I've been doing during that time. You know, I've practiced my piano a lot and done that. I'm not very good at it, but I've done that and just practiced my guitar and just reflecting on how really I've even changed during this time. But anyway, it's just a beautiful experience just now to experience this this meditation.
Thank you, Michael. I really appreciate it, and thank you for staying up and being with us. Really appreciate that. You got up. Okay, so you slept well. Good for you.
Yeah.
Thanks, Michael. John, do you want to comment?
Yeah, I just want to say it's kind of a gift. I'm glad you're okay, first of all.
Yeah, thank you.
And to hear somebody, it's almost like, you know, talking to somebody who's been to the moon and they're back. You know, it's kind of, it gives me a lot of hope, you know, to hear. And I know you guys had to go through some pretty strict measures, but to hear you having used the 63 days and having used the time the way that you did, I can't think of anything else more inspiring that anybody could have been hearing here today than what you just said, because it's like you've lived what we've been talking about is going to happen to us. You've already done it.
Yeah.
It's amazing. Thank you.
Thank you, John.
Yeah. Wow. Appreciate that. So I see Lisa's got her hand up. Let me.
I've unmuted myself.
Okay, Lisa, I think I can hear you now. Can everybody hear? John, can you hear Lisa?
I can hear.
Yeah, I heard her. Yep.
Okay.
I'm in Spain, by the way. What I would like to say about this meditation is that it's so gentle. because about 3 months ago, I finished a shamanic training as a shaman. And one of the exercises that we were given is called the fire breath. I don't know if any of you know about that. It's called the fire breath. And it's really
familiar with it.
Hyperventilation. And for me, it's quite an effort. You know, it's quite long, and it's very ritualistic. And I really dread doing it, you know, and I do it. And one of my teachers has just sent us a message saying that he advises us to do this in this particular situation that the whole world is in. And I thought, oh God, you know, I've got to make that effort. I've got to do it. I know it's good to do it. I've got to do it. And John has just given me the most beautiful, gentle meditation. And I was yawning, you know, because my brain was oxygenating itself. And I'm so happy to do that. And I want to thank you. My heart is really full of gratitude for that. That's all I want to say. Thank you so much.
That's lovely. You know, the one thing I could say. Oh, Mark, do you want to respond
John,
to what
please,
you said?
That was you go for it, buddy.
I have some experience. I've done holotropic breathwork. I actually do stuff which is kind of what you're talking about. It's the same as fire breathing. And the one thing that I've learned is I think that your teacher, I think there's value in it, first of all.
I agree.
And the one thing that I think that you could play around with, I've done this for a while and it seems to work. So one of the things that happens is when we do fire breathing, it takes us more up into like a gamma state a lot of times too. And which is really good, but it can be a little bit more ungrounding. And you're right, it does take effort because you're kind of setting a biochemistry up inside by doing that. The one thing you might want to play around with is if you do this first and then do the fire breathing for however long you guys do it, and then go back to this.
Okay.
And just kind of notice what happens when you do that, because a lot of times you'll notice that you'll get some different benefits from the fire breathing if you get your body really, really slowed down first. And then when you kind of do that, you ramp it back up and you change your blood gases, you'll get a real different kind of effect with that.
Okay.
Just something to play with, you know. We got lots of time, right?
Thank you.
Sure.
Yeah.
Shall I mute myself? I'll mute myself, okay?
I can mute you. Thank you very much. Appreciate it, Lisa.
Thanks, Lisa.
No, I'm really much.
Yeah. So I'm going to try Andrew again, and let me see if I can get you, Andrew. Try now. No, his screen went off, so I'm going to mute him back. I just want to say, so somebody else, if you want to raise your hand or kind of wave at me if you want to say something. Okay, I see one person. I did this in Las Vegas last summer before a group of people, I don't know, 30 people in the room or something. And there was a lady in the front that said, you know, she was in a real bad car accident. She said, I've been trying to get back to where I was. She goes, because I left my body. And she says, I had an experience of like beauty to go to. And I spent all kinds of money and gone all kinds of seminars. She goes, this is the first time I was able to get back there. So I thought it was pretty cool that she was able to feel that and get back there because of this exercise to get her brain out of the way and then get back to who she was.
Yep. That's awesome.
And here's a guy that we both know, John. It's Brandon from.
Oh, wow.
Portland,
Brandon, God, I haven't seen you for a long time.
It's been a little bit, man.
How you doing, buddy?
Great. Oh, man, what you just said there. So I've been practicing the deep breathing, for a few years. I think Mind Power for Free, that was a few years back. Just trying to deal with neurotic thinking, stuff like that, which you mentioned, the stress state. Do you mind 1 second? I'll be back in just 1 second. I have to take care of something.
Sure.
Just a second. Sorry, I apologize.
Yeah. I've had some conversations with Brandon before, and I think he's got a pet outside the door that tends to get a little anxious, I think.
I know the same thing was happening with Odin. He was up here for the whole time.
Odin is John's cat, for those of you.
And then he knew Odin Lee because we had to Southernize him. Okay, go ahead.
I apologize for that. I tuned in. I had work today, and it's pretty slow, but I figured I'd at least hear. But yeah, no, I wanted to talk about I kind of downplayed the deep breathing in comparison, because I would use it as an introduction into meditation to get my body slowed down. However, I would never really value it like what you were saying. It gets you from beta, especially at a time like this, gets you from beta, that fighter, just a lower state that most of us don't want to be in. And it really does significantly, especially if you do it in like long periods, gets you into that higher state, the alpha state, like you were saying. And after practicing it for a few years, at least 20 minutes, I could definitely say whoever's listening here, neurotic thinking, thoughts, like it was a huge asset. It really got me into meditation. Before I went to your guys' seminar and learned about TM and stuff, I would try to meditate. I would just go into it and just try and like close my eyes, what you were saying before, but I'd have so much going on that it would be very difficult to enter into that transcendental sort of space that, the stop the world. So when I implemented the deep breathing, especially longer, like 20, 30 minutes, it made it much more manageable to be able to focus the breath. And then I would enter in those higher states. So, I mean, I tested that. I mean, I've been doing it for a few years now. So
well, that's great.
What I wanted to ask, if you just wouldn't mind on one last thing is, so that you mentioned the fire breathing, and then this is like a combination into it, and that'll actually give you like enhanced effects. Do you mind if I can explore that like for a second more? Because I'm actually very interested in using that for like an early day activity, like in the morning, to get your body more active.
That's what it would be for.
How long would you do that? Like how long? 15.
You don't need to do it. Yeah, it would be a little bit different. Lisa's doing it a little bit more for I think so. Yeah, at least my experience is, that, I mean, I've been in seminars where we do that for 2 hours.
Oh, geez.
And it's not comfortable. It's not comfortable. It's not really meant to be comfortable, but it gets you to a certain place. I wouldn't recommend that anybody does that that's listening on your own. You need to go to somebody who's kind of there as a guide and kind of knows how to do this. What I would recommend is a nice entry point, Brandon, is go to YouTube and look under Wim. He's a Dutch guy, Wim Hof.
Wim Hof,
yeah. And look at his protocol, because that's essentially fire breathing, what he's doing there. So it's a version of it. And it's more for what you're saying. It's more like to kind of wake up your neurology. And for those of you that don't know him, he's known as the Iceman. He's climbed the Himalayas with in bare feet and shorts and no shirt, and has been studied by very, very reputable sources. And people are astounded at his ability to affect his endocrine system, his hormone system, like on command. And he attributes most of this to manipulation of breath. There's a great TED talk on him where he's standing inside of an ice cube, basically. He's surrounded by ice and he's standing in it. He does the whole TED talk while he's standing in it.
Wow.
But he would be, if you look at some of those, and they're all over the place. There's people, not just him, but there's all kinds of people talking about it. And that's usually limited to maybe like 30 breaths or something like that. Just to give you an idea.
Yeah, I put him on mute. I think I heard a phone ringing or something in the background. So
I apologize.
That's all right. That's all right, Brandon. That's all right.
Could I just add something? Could I just say a little comment here?
Yeah, sure.
I just want to say that I think that the fire breath is definitely an exercise to do in the morning to get your energy flowing and dynamize yourself. This other breathing exercise that we've just practiced is something to do later, and maybe to calm you down. And,
Yes.
and it
Exactly.
had that. It was exactly what I needed, you know. And the fire breath can be practiced 150 in, 150 out, 3 times. So it's quite a, you know, a different kind of thing. That's all I wanted to say. One for the morning and one for later on, you know. Okay.
Great.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thanks, Lisa.
Thanks, Lisa. Yeah. So anybody else got anything that they want to contribute to the experience they went through, or any questions for John? Just, you can wave your hand if I don't see you raising your hand on there. Oh, we've got another friend of ours, John. Jos.
All right.
Let me hit. I'm hitting you unmute, Jos, but I don't know what's going on. Let me. Oh, you should be. Yeah, there you go.
Hey,
We got
Jos.
you.
Hey, John.
How's it?
Yeah, we are not in quarantine, as it in English. So we are not restricted to stay inside, but a lot of shops are still open, but schools are closed, and so yeah, it's not so bad as in Belgium and France and Spain and Italy. So we are pretty relaxed here in the Netherlands. Pretty practical.
Of course.
Yes.
Of course, yeah. Yeah, of course, I know the exercise is really nice exercise. And it resulted in being totally connected in the now. But I still have this question. I had it for a few days. And maybe with Michael on the call and John and everybody. Everybody is talking here, and you just did also, about that this is going to bring a big new opportunities, new change, new world, new, everything is new after this crisis. So we have this financial crisis a few years ago, and I have I didn't notice any difference. So how long does this crisis have to take before it will really bring change?
It's a good question. I don't think any of us know. It's a good question, though. I mean, I witnessed the same thing in our country with 9/11, Jos. You know, I remember the days, the days immediately afterwards. People were where I lived in Pennsylvania at the time were definitely nicer. You know, you're driving on a busy road and people aren't cutting each other off. And, you know, my experience, at least where I lived there, I'd say that lasted for about a week, you know, in terms of just the general public. Now, obviously people that had families that were directly, you know, that were related to people who were really affected in the most significant way. And certainly people who were in the areas, you know, like in New York or the other areas near the Pentagon and stuff, but were affected much longer. But I think it's a good question. And, you know, the intent that Mark and I had on the call was, in our own way, can we make a contribution? You know, can we at least, you know, I mean, we're only hypnotists, so these are only suggestions, you know, that, right. You know, maybe if enough people would do that, you know, what we're talking about in their own way, it doesn't have to be in the prescribed way we're saying, that we would bring about some cultural change, and there would be a change in values. And, you know, to me, that's the hope. And certainly for those of us that, you know, all of you that cared to be on the call, that's the call. That's the call. You know, that's the call to you, you know, that at least you could be one. And, you know, I don't know enough about like what critical mass of consciousness, you know, there's people that talk about that. That's not my thing to know about. I don't know all that stuff, you know, what it takes in order for, you know, a new belief to kind of emerge in different parts of the world. But I know it's possible. I know people have measured it. If you look at Rupert Sheldrake's stuff, he talks about that a lot. So, you know, it's a good question, you know, and I don't have an answer, you know, in terms of how much. I'm just hopeful that what's different about this is that it's going to be more prolonged, you know. So Michael said his experience, and most of our countries might not take quite as extreme measures as was in Wuhan. and he's talking 63 days. So that's think about it, you're like in a meditation retreat basically for 63 days. You know, well, what are you going to do?
Yeah.
You know?
Well, I got questions from people in my list to do something with how to survive that all the kids are at home.
Yes.
Especially people that are already tired or burned out or recovering from illness or not being high sensitive.
I can add to that real quick.
They don't really have time to meditate. So they are surviving this crisis.
But here's what I recognize real quick, if I can interject in, is with my daughter, we'd been having some issues with some of her friends that had an influence that we didn't like so much. And so we were having some personal issues. And the first couple of days, she was a little rambunctious there, but she settled down. She sees us settling down, and she started to settle down. And she's still on the phone talking to people, but there was something about the physical interaction with other kids that she was getting, that now she's almost realized, I'm in this situation. I don't know for how long. And I think I don't know is a big thing, is to say, if you can get used to saying, it's okay. I ask some of my clients, what happens when you die? I don't know. I said, what if you applied that to this and just said, I don't know. I just don't know. But she's realized she's in a group with her parents and that she may be here for a long time. So I think it's become apparent to her that she's got
no pun intended, right, Mark?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So I think that there's going to be a natural process happening. And I think as the parents adjust their states and maybe incorporate this into that the children are there to model them on an unconscious and a conscious level, but mainly unconscious, I think it'll help them. John, I don't know if you have anything.
Yeah, I mean, I've had a number of clients, Yost, who some of whom are single moms. In fact, the ones that I'm thinking about are single moms, and all of the kids, at least of the people that I was speaking to, they're all home. So and in some cases, the school has said that they're closed indefinitely. Because they might not even be in a position where they've set up remote learning yet and all that. And my one client said it best. She said, after a couple days, I sat down with my son, and she's probably in her mid 40s, and I think he's around 12. And so he's going through all the hormone stuff. I know this. And she said, finally, just so you know, it was okay we did it for a day or two, but the days of eating Doritos at 11:30 at night are now ending. And what we need to do is we need to decide on a routine that we're going to do here. And the people that I know that have seemed to manage this the best, that's what they've done, is that they've taken it, they've actually, said, okay, so how are we going to use our time here? And so that some people have space if they need it, they do things collectively, all of that. And that's just kind of like the family therapist to me talking. But it was funny, somebody who from TCU, Jason, is on a thread with Mark and Chris and Tim that Chris, thank you, started. And
Chris.
He just replied back, when was that? Yesterday. And I just thought I would read this because it's kind of cool. The relevant part is I spent the past week at home with kids. He has a real large group practice that he runs. His wife had to work, and he had the time to just be. We've had the time to just be with each other. This weekend, we will welcome Mom back and complete our family unit. I think at the end of this crisis, it will bring us all closer together. And the other part that's kind of relevant that I really like, he said at the end, it's a unique thing to be an American with a can-do attitude, but what there is to do is be.
Nice transition there. That's beautiful.
So probably doesn't answer your question, Yost, but it's a response. I mean, to me, it's all that's going to happen is all the original, to put it in therapy terms, all the original anchors that were kind of just distracted from when everybody's out doing their thing are just going to be there. So in terms of what you could be doing as a person that's working with them is now all the triggers are right there in front of them. you know,
Yeah.
And they got an opportunity to, make some shifts, not just maybe in terms of their relationship with their kids, but their relationship with themselves.
Yeah.
Mm.
Well
Nice.
said.
Yeah. I was wondering, Michael was in 63 days in quarantine. Can I ask him
Yeah.
how it's different after this time?
Let me pause just for 1 second, Yost, because we came up on 1 o'clock, 2 hours, and I want to be gracious to John because he's been really cool about sticking around for this long. We had talked about probably 90 minutes, and we just kept.
Well, yeah, we did laugh a little bit when we said that.
Yeah, we did. So I want to know if you're okay, and if you're okay staying on for a little bit longer. If you've got how long you?
Yeah, a few minutes. Yeah, a few minutes.
Okay.
We can definitely finish this thread here.
Okay, so go ahead, Yost. I'm sorry to interrupt you. And Michael, if you want to talk, let me unmute you. Okay, you guys should both be unmuted.
I missed the question.
Yeah, so the question was, you are there where we are in 63 days. And I was wondering, how did it change you? Do you have an idea that it's an indefinite change or it's just a temporal change?
Well,
it's anything at all.
Yeah, the change with me, first of all, I've been completely I live by myself. And for the first 33 days, I had no face-to-face contact with any human being at all.
Wow.
And then my assistant, she brought some things to me. So that's the first time I really walked outside my door, because I was determined that, if I'm here, my daughter lives here in the city with me. I live in the city where Shaolin Temple is located. And it's a wonderful place, but my daughter, she also lives here, but she doesn't. She lives her and her husband live not too far from me, but she happens to be in Turkey right now. So I had no face-to-face contact with anybody for over 30 days. And it just, the appreciation that you have, the appreciation you have for those you love, grows. That's it.
That's beautiful, Michael.
That's awesome. Wow. And you communicated that with every fiber of your being, my friend. We got it. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
I don't know, Mark. I think that's I think Michael he just summed the whole thing up right there.
Woo! Wow. That's strong. That was really strong. Thank you, Michael. Yeah, so well, I'll leave you with this. My wife did a little research, and this morning I went through and looked at it about the drug that is, and I'm not a doctor, so, but what I got out of it, how do you say that, John? You'll say it better.
Yeah,
than I
the chloroquine or
chloroquine.
Yeah, or something like that. Yeah, it's close.
Yeah, but I've got some links if y'all are interested.
Chloroquine.
What it does was, and she pulled this out, and then I went and looked at it helps with the uptake of zinc in the body. So zinc is really important in this. That's the key to how the drug works. It brings more zinc into the cells. So just I've been looking at zinc, and I think John knows this for many ages. This zinc here that I use, you use whatever brand you want, but if you find a zinc orotate, that is from everything I've read, has the best uptake. And OptiZinc is two different types you can buy anywhere, no specific brand. But then one of the articles said that a supplement, if you're not interested in taking a bunch of drugs and things like that, and you want to try it naturally to protect yourself, it helps you from spreading it, is quercetin. Quercetin helps with the uptake of zinc. So to keep yourselves healthy from a nutritional supplement plan, I'm sure you can get them wherever you are around the world. And yeah, maybe that'll bring us. That thing with Michael got me a little bit there. that's powerful.
As it did, yeah, sure.
So what if we take it like the exercise and start with that as a goal about loving each other more?
Yeah, exactly. Take it from somebody who's been through it, so that can become our starting point.
Yeah.
Thanks.
So, John, I want to thank you, and I think you all realize why I brought John on. And well, I'm so excited about that. And we were going to spend 90 minutes. We spent over 2 hours. This is great, brother. So, this is a wonderful gift you've given us. So, I thank you very much.
Well, it's a gift that you gave me by wanting to include me, and so it all goes around. So, thank you, brother. Love you, man.
Love you too, John. Thank you. And thank you, everybody, for joining us and listening. And I'm going to do some more. I think I had talked to Michael, and he's going to come on and maybe talk some more with me in the next few days. And if you all want that video, then I'll be glad to send it to you. I've got some links that I'm going to send you so you can get on that. And if you want John on again, we had talked about that. If he thinks this is a good experience for him and you'd like to be on again, John, we'd love to have you back.
Sure, you know that.
Yeah, no, I know that, but they don't know all that.
I got it.
Yeah. So thanks again, John. Thanks everybody. Love you all. Take care of yourselves. Be healthy, and we look forward to seeing and talking to you again. Bye-bye.
See y'all.
Thanks.
Thank you, everyone.
Bye. Thank you. Yeah, let me unmute all. There, everybody's unmuted now. So if you want to say something.
Thanks, John. Thanks, everybody. Thank you, John.
Thanks, John. Thanks, Mark.
Thank
you,
you.
everybody.
Thank you, Michael.
Thank you.
Thanks,
Bye-bye.
Paul.
Bye-bye, everybody.
Talk soon.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye. Thanks from Portland.
Thanks.